Hey guys, I'm back. How are y'all today? I'm back to doing doubles. And this time, it's two more kids, of course. Dione and FEra Ignaetious. First and foremost, I'm going to address this real quick. They do have the same last name. They're not siblings. If you've seen my past videos, you ought to know by now my story centers around an orphanage. Lilim, Karina, and Percy knew their last names when they were orphans, but most of the kids were very little and didn't know their last names. As such, their surnames became the orphanage name Ignatius. Since Dione and FEra were 4 and 3 respectively, they didn't know their last names. Therefore, they have the orphanage name. And real quick, the one with red hair is FEra, and the one with green hair is Dione. That's established. Though I would imagine that FEra would sound like a girl's name, and Dione would sound like a boy's name, and they kind of look like a boy and a girl's. Alright, moving on. Before I start rambling around or something. The best place to start here would probably be with Dione. Dione is a demon boy, like Percy is, and he was the only child of 2 demon parents. They lived at the edge of Allium in a village not that far from Karina and Lilim's village from when they were young. It was a mixed race village, so elves, dwarves, demons, humans, etc. So demons in it weren't hated, as they would be in most places, but to be honest, the village was mostly human. Dione had a few friends, though not that many, because there weren't a lot of young children at that time in his village, so not a big friend options. Not a lot of friend options, I guess you could say. Dione's parents kind of just picked up whatever work was around the village, and they worked a lot because there was a lot of random work to do around the village. They would help maybe clean some areas if they were overly messy from the weather and such. They would help the farmers during harvesting time, the bakers after harvesting time, trying to process through some of the stuff, or like the curers for meats, or the hunters. They'd go around a little bit everywhere. They of course took care of Dione and made time for him too, but they didn't. They did have to go out and do their part of the village, and although making time for their son, they and Dione would be kind of rarely have like a day together. As I said in Percy's video before, demons tend to be gifted in light and or dark magic, and Dione turned out to be good with light magic, a very specific kind of light magic. He was especially good at premonition magic. Dione would foggily know things, and would have vague visions in his sleep on rare occasions, and as he grew older, they would get sharper. But they were always kind of like flashes, like surges. Technically what it was surges of magic that he was just kind of using on accident. Whether it be in his sleep or otherwise, he would just kind of have a random surge of magic without realizing it. He wouldn't know exactly what was going to happen, he'd just have ideas, so vague ideas of what was going to happen in the future. No one else knew any of that. Honestly, Dione didn't even know it. It was weird that Dione was good at guessing, but it happened infrequently enough that it was easily blown off, and Dione, his parents, the people of the village thought nothing of it, aside from it being a little weird and or creepy. I mean, think about it. Well, he's not even 4. This is up to 4, so from the point of which he could talk to the point of which he could, well, until he was 4. I mean, if they could guess things pretty well in that time frame, wouldn't you be creeped out? I mean, So that's enough of the informational stuff. One night after, one night when Dione was 4, he had a bad dream one night, and it kind of led to a bad feeling. He felt like something bad was going to happen soon. and he kind of had an idea of what it was, but he had kind of started catching on the pattern by this point, and he was kind of hoping that he was wrong, because he hadn't confirmed it by this point yet. He really wanted to be wrong about what he saw this time, though. And what he saw, well, we'll brush up on that in a bit. In that morning, though, Dione asked his parents if they could go out to the hill overlooking the village that was away, a bit out of the ways, to play or to picnic. He really didn't care, but his parents had to work. He begged them to let him, for them to all to go, but they had to work. But they told him he could go out with his friends and spend time with them there, and his parents left and went to their work. And with that being his only options, that's what Dione did. He brought his friends up to the hill and sat, and he watched them play. And he wasn't really feeling up to playing himself, so he just sat and waited at the top of the hill. And then his bad feeling was confirmed, as he highly suspected it would be. His village got attacked, which meant that everyone in that village was doomed, more or less. He brought his friends up there, at the very least, so that they would have a chance to get away and to survive, so to speak. Most of his friends did run. A couple just stood there, and a couple others actually ran towards the village, likely out of concern for their own parents. He didn't stop them because it would be pointless. They wouldn't listen. They were kind of tuned out, and much to his unfortunate knowledge, there was really nothing he could do for them. Dione sat there for a while longer, but after a bit, he got up because soon the soldiers would be starting to make their way that direction. He started walking down the hill away from the village and into the woods. He didn't follow the path. He felt something pulling him away from it. Unknowingly, he was heading towards the very same village that Lilum and Karina were going to be heading to in just a couple of days. As he walked, finally away from anyone else and the village, it hit him that his parents were probably dead. That his friends, some of them were going to be dead, most of them would hopefully make it away. Luckily, thanks to him, but still. He felt bad for not being able to help more people, and for only now having really had figured out his gift, to truly have figured it out, too late to really actually help anyone. He had a long walk in which to think about this and to cry, and at some point come to a level of peace. Not complete peace, because he's 4. It's always going to haunt him on some level, but he could be somewhat at peace with it. He was kind of the first one. He was the first to run into Karina and Lilum because of that little mysterious force pulling him in the right direction, so to speak. He joined them, and he was kind of the one to convince them to stay in the village a little longer, which would ultimately be where they met Percy, and he joined them. He played a big part in every orphan kind of joining them. Well, almost every orphan. He played a big part in almost every orphan that joined them, because he would kind of pull people away, convince them to stay a little longer, pull them towards certain villages, just kind of act like a guide, so to speak, until they came up to what would become their orphanage. That is basically all I could say about Dione. The only other thing to really mention is Dion's preferred method of fortune telling, once he actually had the option and the ability to control it on some level, was tarot card reading. It's something easy to do and for him to control, and it's using less energy than a direct premonition. And what he actually values most of all is the fact that it's as vague as it could probably get. You know, it's not great to know what's going to happen all the time, or so to speak, or even some of the time. Ignorance is bliss and all that, right? Well, moving onwards with that, how about we move on to FEra? FEra is a human girl. Wait, what? Why is she human? She has ears and a tail. What the heck was that accent? That's a weird way to say tail. As I've said in my last video, human magic is unstable. Sometimes when a person has a particularly feral or wild spirit and a high affinity to magic, their magic itself can warp their bodies in the development process in the womb. They will then tend to take form of whatever their spirit is most similar to. It's rare, and when it does happen, the people born like this usually can't do magic because all their magic is put towards holding their bodies together and keeping them stable. It isn't natural, of course, so it takes a lot of energy to keep the body, to hold the body together in that unnatural form, especially when it's meant to boost things like hearing or maybe strength in your legs to jump high, depends on what you depends on what your spirit animal, I guess, is in this case. FEra was one of these rare cases, born with cat-like features. She kind of had the personality of a playful kitten with a slight wild streak. When she was born, her family took her to the nearest city, to a well-known healer, because they thought their child was horribly malformed. Like, what the heck? It has ears and a tail. What's wrong with our baby? Well, the healer explained to them why their child was quote-unquote malformed and what to expect along with the cat features. For example, she wouldn't develop as fast as an actual cat, but she would develop in some ways faster than a normal human baby, and slower in some ways as well. They took her back home and proceeded to raise her, and true to the healer's word, FEra learned quickly how to crawl, walk, and run. And she was very, very slow at learning to talk, to the point where even at 3, she wasn't very proficient at it. But her personality did truly seem to be that of a kitten at the time. She was very playful and energetic and curious. Curiosity killed the cat. That doesn't sound good, now does it? At least I can console you. She's not gonna die. Yet. So one night, after FEra had been tucked into bed, at 3 years old, she kind of changed her own life at that moment, at that time. She was looking out the window of her second-story bedroom, and she saw floating light. It was a firefly, not that FEra knew that. And if anyone knows what happens with most cats and a floating light, so to speak, she jumped out the window after it. She missed it, but she landed on the ground smoothly on her feet, and then off she went after the little light that was flying away. She chased after that for a while, and then she found a mouse and chased after that, and then she found a bird and started chasing after that. At some point she ended up at the opposite end of the village that she had lived in, and it was dawn. She heard a flap and thought it was a bird because that's the only thing that flaps around here. And instead, she sees a small group of children, and 2 of them have tails like she does, though their tails weren't like hers. And one of them was making that flapping sound. Whatever that creature was, it was now the newfound object of her fascination. She abandoned that bird. As the group started actually moving forward and leaving the village, she began, being a little predator that she was, stalking behind them, clumsily. I mean, she wasn't horrible at it. She could be discreet. She just was clumsy about it. Especially with orange hair and grass. A little ways away from the village, one of the kids finally saw her stalking behind them. So they tried to ask her where her family was, but as previously stated, FEra wasn't a big talker. Not to mention, she was kind of ignoring everything but the object of her fascination. Speaking of which, she sprung forward and up in front of Dione, and proceeded to point at herself and say 3 words. "FEra, who you?" And upon Dion's answer, which would of course have been his name, she proceeded to attach herself to him and rarely left him but a moment alone for a long time. After that, she was kind of considered one of the orphans. She actually quickly ended up forgetting about her family and just kind of embraced the orphanage, so to speak. And that's the history of FEra and Dione. They're a cute dynamic, though, I have to say. Dione with his little wisdom and maturity, and FEra with her innocence and wildness. I like it. I hope you guys like it too. Well, that's all this time. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like if you like, sub if you wish. Thanks for having me. I'm gonna leave it to the music from now on, and I hope you guys have fun. Bye.